Good morning, everybody. We'll get started here. Welcome to the Business Office Efficiency session here at the Cal-ISBOA conference. And I would like to say thank you all for joining me today. I know there are a lot of takeaways that I've already taken from some of the sessions that I've participated in this morning that I think will help pertain to this. So we can get started. Let's see, there we go. Again, because we had some technical difficulties, my name's Michelle Shanks. I'm the interim CFO of the Brandeis School of San Francisco. I'm going to be presenting this session with a few colleagues, which many of you might have met or worked with in the past. Heather Levan, she's the Solutions Engineer Senior Sales Enablement from Blackbaud. And we have Roger Clark, Regional Vice President of Fax Management, Aaron Dodson, Director of New Business Development from FundDriver. And I'm still getting some people admitted here. So we are going to get started. What is efficiency? When you're looking at your business office, I think, and the tools that you use in the business office, I think the first thing to talk about is what is efficiency? And I just pulled up the Google definition of efficiency: the state or quality of being efficient, an action designed to achieve efficiency, the ratio of the useful work performed by a machine or in a process to the total energy expended or heat taken in. And I think that last definition is kind of where we're going to focus a little bit. We're going to be talking about business office efficiency and the tools that we use in the business office, whether it be your accounting software, your student billing software, your HRIS system, or various other tools that your business office might be using. How can you make sure that you're using those tools to be the most efficient and to save the most time that you can? So how do we determine efficiency in the tools that we're using? I would say the first place to start would be to audit the software tools you currently use. Take a look at your accounting software, and are you using your software to the best of its ability? And I know many of us have been using some of the same software for years and years, and sometimes I would say we get lazy in not maybe looking at the newest tools that are available from the vendor. So it's really good to do an audit of your software tools. My first comment would be, see if your vendor can help you with your school to perform an audit of your software. They might be able to take a look at the back end, take a look at the systems that you're using, and making sure that you're taking full advantage of the software that many of us pay a lot of money to use. So that is the first note. The second would be seek out a consultant to assist with an audit. It might be best to see if you can find a consultant who can really delve in to the back end of your system and your school and how you're using the software, and really determine, are you using it to the best of its ability to make your business office the most efficient possible? And in terms of asking these questions, I'm really posing these questions to not only the CFOs or the business officers, but if we have any business office staff on this session, I think these are things that you can think about yourself, and maybe bring to your CFO or to your controller or to your business officer, because the people that use the software day in, day out are really the ones who can really determine and help answer some of these questions about efficiency. And then also you can research your efficiency yourself if you feel like you don't want to hire a consultant, or if your vendor is unable to delve as deep as you may want to with this. And there's a couple ways that you can do this. I would reach out to other users of your software tools to ask some questions, see about how they're using it. So here as I said, we can talk to fellow users of the software tool. You can reach out on the Cal-ISBOA listserv. I know there's been a lot of talk with Cal-ISBOA about maybe having affinity groups for specific tools that maybe users can have occasional meetings to just talk about things and brainstorm and make sure that we're all using those tools to the best of their ability. And then the next thing you can do is to research new software tools. You might determine that the tools that you have are really not cutting it for your school, are not being the most efficient that they can be. You're not able to get the information that you need out of your software tool that you might need to provide to your board or to your head of school or to your CFO. So there are ways you can go into researching new software tools to make sure that you're using those tools to the best of their ability, or finding tools that will help your school be the most efficient. You can look at what other schools are using on the Cal-ISBOA survey. There are a lot of questions about software that we all use. You can see what other schools are using and look at what, I think I looked at the survey prior to preparing this presentation and was looking to see what's the most common software in different areas. And so that is a good place to start. Talk to your fellow business officers, reach out on listserv, talk to your colleagues that you have relationships with to see what they might be using. I know this community is so helpful. I reach out to people all the time asking questions. And reach out to the vendors. I know a lot of us, have heard of vendor names or hear from vendors at the various conferences or have met them in the vendor halls. So I would encourage everybody to reach out to the vendors. And just, I wrote some notes down from some of the sessions that went on earlier. I know Ari Betov in his opening presentation talked about leveraging capacity. And I would say, let's help our tools leverage the capacity of our business office. Sometimes you have people with varying skills, and finding the right software to really help you leverage the capacity of your business office to make sure that they're working as efficiently as possible with the various strengths that the different people in your business office may have. I think the tools that we use can really help with that. And he also, I wrote something else down. He talked about burning muscle instead of fat. And I think a lot of times there could be a lot of fat in the software tools that we use, and really getting down to make sure that we're using that fat to not burn the muscle of our business office team, but really using the tools that our software have in the most efficient way possible. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We are going to hear from a few of the vendors that many of us use, maybe some vendors you might not use, but have been curious to hear about. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Heather, I think we can have you share your screen, everybody. I'd like to introduce Heather from Blackbaud, and she's going to talk to you about one of the tools in Financial Edge NXT that maybe not all of us have been using, but really is a tool that I feel like can help in the efficiency of your business office. So Heather.
All right. You seeing my screen, Michelle?
Yes.
Expense management.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm here to show you just kind of one area that's definitely an exciting area for us within Financial Edge NXT. And I'm excited to talk with all of you because I'm actually a resource here at Blackbaud that is K-12 specific. So I talk to schools all day and get to hear lots of different uses of their current systems. So I love Michelle's topic just around efficiency, because I definitely want to make sure that if you're using Financial Edge NXT or even looking at it, that when that is at the core of your system here in the school, you're using it effectively, you're getting the most out of it. And so expense management is definitely a nice evolution for us here in Financial Edge. And so what I like to always say is just kind of, we're going to talk about expense management. It's everyone's favorite activity, right? So and what you're seeing on the screen right now is a view of Financial Gen XT that would be specific that you can give access to. And what I mean by that is within Financial Gen XT, you could have your full users, which I would assume would be many of you. You also have view-only users. Well, you now also have expense users, and they're kind of in their own bucket is how I think of that. And the reason for that is when I am just an expense user, meaning I'm someone at the school that has a credit card, or I need to submit a reimbursement request or a check request or an actual invoice for payment. When I am just an expense user utilizing expense management, when I log in up here at the top where right now you see everything because I'm an administrator, they would actually only see expenses and home. So it's intentionally giving them a small piece of the Financial Gen XT pie, and that's all they would actually see. And so this is an area that you can give access to for folks to manage their own activity without giving them access to anything else. So this is an area you can see, it's kind of a work center is what we've built out here. So we're going to explore both sides. The first side being if they have a school card in their name. Little caveat here, I would have already set up the credit card account within the treasury side of Financial Edge and XT, and I would have already set up the credit card feed, either being through an existing credit card account that you have, or if you are using the Blackbaud purchase card. I always mention the Blackbaud purchase card because if you are a school with a lot of card holders, especially over 20, it's definitely something to look into because it is a true purchase card where you can set very specific spending controls by card holder, even spending limits, and then you have the ability to have an unlimited amount of cards connected to the system. But again, I would have already set that up. I would have indicated who holds those cards at the school. And then now I'm going to kind of switch hats and be one of those card holders. That user can just come in here and see what charges are kind of in the queue, essentially awaiting for their review. And they can just click right there where it says work with my charges. When they do that, what actually kicks into gear, you're going to see it on the left panel of my screen, is actually the credit card feed. So that is going to automatically flow into expense management whenever they access it. And then it gives them the ability to work through those transactions because I just clicked on one of those transactions and the remaining part of my screen is giving me the basic fields to account for that transaction. And I say basic just because we recognize that this is often used by non-financial users at the school. So it's pretty simple. What's nice about this is you can actually start to create the vendor activity even from that credit card perspective on your vendor records. Not a required field, but we definitely see a lot of schools using that. You can automate the approval rule, and this is unlimited. You can see I have a lot of examples in my particular environment, but you can build out as many approval rules in the system and indicate for each of those rules, you can see an approval path, who needs to be involved in that approval process. And so in this particular case, Chris, maybe he's over the baseball team, he needs to approve everything, but if it's above a certain dollar amount, which you set, maybe it also needs to be reviewed by James. Maybe he's another member of leadership. These can have as many people as you want in that. And what's really nice about the approval paths is it creates an audit trail on the transaction record. You can't change that audit trail, so it's definitely something that your auditors are going to want to see, but it is automated via the use of those approval rules. Additional details would certainly just kind of be a text field that you have here. Maybe if it was a meal purchase, they need to put who was actually attending that meal, list those names there, whatever that looks like. It's a wide open text field. The next option would be distribution, and you can see I have expense categories there. This is option 1. You can keep it really simple for your end users and build out as many expense categories as you'd like, which just allows them to very quickly select one of those expense categories. And you can see in this case, as I just scroll down just slightly, you're seeing my account was already in there. So I can preload whatever I'd like there. And maybe for my users, I'm leaving kind of the chart of account option more so on the business office side, but my end users need to select, what project in this case might relate to this expense. What's nice about that is you can also split that transaction. So if it needs to be paid over a couple different accounts and or projects, your users can do that as well. To me, that part of the screen there just kind of feels like a little mini journal entry. And then the last step would be the attachment capability. And this, for those that are already on Financial Gen XT, you know this is throughout the system, but it's certainly here in expense management. And what's nice about this is NXT is available on any device and it's completely mobile responsive. So this is definitely a feature of the system that we are seeing used on smartphones, for example. So if I am that user and I'm just doing this on my smartphone because I want to get it taken care of before I lose my receipt or misplace it, I can at that point just take a picture of the receipt and I'm done. It's live attached at that moment to Financial Edge NXT, and they click submit. It's going to flow through the approval process, however you've built that out, and then it's going to flow into accounts payable right there as credit card activity. The really important part of all things that are coming out of expense management is when it comes over into accounts payable, it is still pending and still editable by someone in the business office. So the control, kind of last eyes on this information is absolutely going to be with the business office. The other side to expense management would be the invoice side. You can see right there at the top, it says my invoice requests. I actually think they could rename that slightly because I'm seeing it used far more broadly than that, certainly at schools. I know for me, I worked at a school, I had a lot of locations and I had a lot of paper floating around as well. And so I was looking for efficiencies with not only that traditional situation where someone worked with a vendor, maybe they had a field trip and they ordered t-shirts for the kids. They had the relationship with the vendor, so the vendor sent them the invoice, and now they need to get that submitted, approved, and paid. You can do that right here. But I also had reimbursement forms. I had check request forms. For me, they were all on paper, and I was looking to consolidate all of that. So certainly, as Michelle was talking about efficiencies, there's a lot of opportunity here because all of that can be consolidated right here. That end user would just click on new request. This is going to look, as you can see, very similar to what we just went over on the credit card side. That's intentional. The big difference up here is because at the end of this process, it's going to flow into accounts payable and create an invoice record. So on this side of the house, the vendor is actually required. I always make a little caveat here. If I'm just that expense user, and I mentioned kind of those different buckets of users, I cannot add or edit the vendor record. I don't have access to do that. That control, as all of you know, needs to stay within the business office. But I do need to be able to select from my vendors, and with all things NXT, this is just an alphanumeric search field that I can search first and find whatever vendor applies here. Beyond that, aside from the invoice number, invoice date fields, everything else is the same. So distribution details, either by categorizing those or providing those additional details. And then of course, attachments. So in this case, it could be that invoice copy. It could be a mileage log if they're looking to get reimbursed for mileage or whatever that looks like. Maybe they use their personal funds and ordered something off of Amazon. They can attach that packing slip or a copy of the receipt. Whatever it looks that you need to have attached there, that's what they can attach. They would click submit. Again, it's going to go through that approval process, and then it's going to come into accounts payable as an invoice record. And one little extra bonus, I know I'm almost right at time, and I'll hand it back to you, Michelle, but just want to give a visual to what those approval rules can look like. You can see that very top one is a bit more complicated. So however many layers, that's how I think of that you need on your approval rules, you can do that. And then also as it comes into accounts payable, and so I'm just on a vendor record in this case, if it was an invoice request, I can quickly find it just by typing IR. So I am able to differentiate the activity depending on where it comes from. So it's coming from expense management, I can find that, or if it's credit card activity where I've actually populated that vendor, I can see that as well. So very easy for me to really see all of my vendor activity, no matter how it's coming into the system. And just to give one extra little bonus in the last couple seconds that I've got left, that audit trail is very handy to have in the system. And as I mentioned, it's created automatically. And there's a visual to that as well. You can see I have no edit capability. It's really locked down at that point, but as it flows through different users, and hopefully it all wasn't one person, but you'll be able to actually have that from the audit trail perspective on each of these transactions as they come into the system. So that is expense management. Thanks for your time today. I'll hand it back to you, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Heather. And everybody, just so you know, we're going to do Q&A at the end for all of our presenters. So feel free to put your questions in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. But thank you so much, Heather. I think we can all see that there's this great piece of Financial Edge NXT that I've been working with many schools over the past year and on an interim basis. And I've seen that I haven't run across anybody who is using this great new tool, or not even new tool, but tool to Financial Edge NXT WebView that I think really can benefit our schools. And definitely, I think we saw during the pandemic that having people remote and working in different places, this tool really could be valuable in terms of having everybody submit their paperwork electronically, to get approvals electronically, and to get off of the kind of old school paper trail of getting expenses submitted. And so now I would like to present Roger Clark. He's the Regional Vice President from Fax Management. And Roger, I think you should be able to share your screen.
Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. Can you guys hear me first of all?
And I can hear you. And
Okay.
yeah, it looks like you need to go into present view, but we can see your screen.
Okay. First of all, thank you everyone this morning. And this morning we're going to talk about the fax audit services. We appreciate some of your businesses out there from schools. And for a lot of you, you haven't been updated on fax and what's happening lately. So I thought I'd take this time just to make sure what you're aware of what's going on in our company. First of all,
yeah, Roger, sorry to interrupt. Can you do presenter view so we can see your full screen? The slides in your full screen. I think you have to go to slideshow at the top. The top there. Yeah, keep going to the right. Keep going. There's a selection slideshow next. Keep going one more over.
Okay, I can't see it here, so bear with me a second.
Yeah, it's just at the top menu items. There's a selection slideshow.
Okay.
Next to file, home, insert, design. Keep going over to the right. Slideshow is one of the choices there.
Okay. I'm blocked off by this toolbar along the top here, so bear with me a second. Can I move this? Yeah, Michelle, can I move this bar along the top?
Yeah, I think you can drag it and move it. Sorry, everybody, technical difficulties.
From the beginning. Okay,
there you go. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your patience. So a lot of times in business offices, there is a lot of change in positions at the user level, student billing level. So we've come up with a new thing called Hub Help, and I'm not sure if a lot of schools use this or not. This is an online education tool. We're finding that more and more schools are wanting to be self-serviced, and so this is an opportunity for them to learn as they go, but also to use their account manager as well. It's a wonderful service that we use for all of our products, but we're finding tuition management or student billing is usually a pretty high turnover of people, and it takes a lot of time for people to get up and running, and sometimes people are a little afraid to get started. Where do I start? There are some schools out there that do a nice training from transition from place to place. Other schools, it's just the turnover is just too quick and too fast. And so we have this online help for you. We also have incidental billing. A lot of schools use us for tuition, but not for incidental billing. Incidental billing really is for fees outside of tuition. You have the flexibility involved here. So if you have tuition on one date and you want to have fees to a separate date, you can do that as well. It's a nice feature, allows you to really track everything through the fax program and use this as a subsidiary ledger. Consumer-driven change is a very, we're talking about business efficiencies in this topic. This is very big for a lot of schools, especially for those who have a lot of students and parents who are always continually changing. That 5-second phone call usually turns into 5 minutes because they have to explain to you why they're making this change. Under your school's business rules, they can actually allow them to change dates of tuition due, but not amounts. So this can be a very nice piece. You guys set up your own business rules. You tell us how you want this to be done, and then also how many deferrals you want during that school year. On average, most schools will do about 3 per year, and it increases the efficiency because people aren't getting bogged down. Advanced accounting is also a new feature we have. This allows FACTS to be a subsidiary ledger. For those who are doing accrual accounting, we can run everything through the FACTS program with a $sign, and we can then map this back out to your GL program. We also have delinquency management, follow up on those delinquency pairs. When you go through your audits every single year, if you use us, we can assist you with a SAS 18 audit. And then we have the data security PCI level 1 compliance and red flag rules ready. So little tips and tricks for you out there. Everyone, if you're using our service, should be using a tuition rate table. This is going to help you tremendously because what we do before the implementation starts, we enter all of your gross tuition amounts into the system. And then we enter all of your sibling discounts, any type of discounts you have. This is going to save you a lot of time on the back end. Also, when it comes to making adjustments, we do corrections. It's just like erasing it and redoing it again. So it's saving some time. When you have credits, don't be generic financial aid, scholarships, whatever you want to call it. Be very specific because you can report on all these tools. So if you have a foundation, if you have a person, if you have a group of people that do this, be very, very specific so you can run reports on that. Don't just, like I said, just don't be generic. When it comes to payments, we can track all types of payments. Important here to use is 100% usage. Don't use this just for the monthly pairs. Use this for the annual pairs and semester pairs as well. Because if you decide you want to use FACTS as your subsidiary ledger, this is going to be important to have every single one in there. Another important thing is the invoice agreements. You have your families who pay you in full or pay you semesterly. They don't want to be bothered. They just want to cut you a check. However, a lot of schools out there, after they cut the full payment check, they're also going to be billed. So you can actually create agreements for them in the system at a reduced rate, and then also trying to reduce the amount of paying coming into the school. COVID is a great example of we're trying to secure our families, and so we're trying to reduce the cash coming in, and basically it's a big security issue for you guys. I'm not sure how much money comes in. Some can be in the thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. We're just trying to make it safe and easy for you to manage that process. I've talked a little bit about advanced accounting. FACTS would be your subsidiary ledger. And these are some of the reports you can use. It's really ideally for these schools who use accrual-based accounting. We do have reports that can help you on cash-based, but for accrual-based, it really works out nicely, and we can really match this up to Blackbaud's, other accounting programs, GL programs that are out there. And also, just to let you know, FACTS outside of tuition, we do have a student information system as well, online application and enrollment, on our financial needs assessment service. And then our new one, which we're very excited about, is the FACTS Education Solutions. This helps you with Title I funds and all of the recent federal dollars that are available. We can help you with that. And we also have a training tool as well. So if your teachers are looking to possibly get tutored and trained, and your principals just don't have time to access all the classrooms, we can assist you with this as well. This is a brand new service, and we're getting great feedback from the schools that are utilizing this service. So that is my quick presentation for you today. The FACTS representation is here for you throughout the state of California. Robin Riley is Northern California. I handle kind of the LA Basin, and then Carol Morris is San Diego, Central Valley, and Central Coast. So Michelle, thank you very much for allowing us to speak today.
Thank you, Roger. Again, we're just quickly touching on some of these tools that a lot of our schools use, and things that you might want to think about if you don't have advanced accounting set up in your system, if you don't have the your journal entries kind of coming out mapped and prepared, ready to go into your accounting system. Just some things to think about that will really help save you time. The import and export functions of FACTS. Just there are many tools that will really help save time, that we just want to spark everybody's imagination in looking at the tools that they're using. So thank you, Roger. And next we have Erin Dodson, who is from FundDriver. And FundDriver is a product which I don't think a lot of California schools use. I happen to research and start using FundDriver years ago when I was the controller at Marlborough School, and have found for schools with endowments that this is an invaluable product that literally took my time of working on and reconciling a very large endowment from a couple days down to maybe an hour. So Aaron, welcome.
Thank you, Michelle. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, and we
can
can
you see
see
my
your,
screen?
yes, thank
Excellent.
you.
So thank you. Again, my name's Aaron Dotson. I'm the Director of New Business Development here at FundDriver. For those of you not familiar with FundDriver, we are a software company. We do offer a web-based software as a service application for administering and tracking endowment and other pooled funds that are commingled, you know, in a single investment pool. As most of you are probably aware, when it comes to inefficiencies in the workplace, there's no bigger enabler than the use of spreadsheets to accomplish, you know, those various jobs to be done that you're doing. We created this software application to really replace the use of spreadsheets when it comes to administering and tracking endowed and other pooled funds, which is what we saw most institutions using. Probably around 95% of the clients that we've onboarded have come off spreadsheets. The main FundDriver application has a lot of functionality, and I'm going to be showing you some of this here in a second, outside of just being able to allocate investment activity down to the named fund level. I mean, you can administer spending rules here, which means you can set parameters, you can calculate what's available for spending, you can run a budget report, you can proof the calculations out. You can also store documents and assign them to individual named funds in the database. You can produce your endowment footnote to satisfy your annual audit or under the new ASU reporting requirements for FASB. You can also produce like stewardship type report. We have what we call a donor report that I'll show you that you can generate from the system. We also have a very robust reporting capability out of FundDriver. We have about 40 standard reports built into the application already, as well as the ability to create your own reports through a user-defined reporting tool that we've built into the product. We also offer some additional functionality through some add-on modules for institutions looking for functionality outside of what the main application can provide. This allows us to accommodate, you know, a variety of different size institutions. We have clients that are really small, you know, under $5 million in an endowment, up to the very large university systems that are, you know, tracking several $billion. We currently have around 475 institutions using FundDriver to track this type of information. Around 15% are K-12, like independent schools that are using FundDriver. And Michelle, we do have a few out in California, but it's not many. I thought of 3 right before I came on here. About 65% of our client base is higher ed institutions, primarily because that was always our target market. I'm going to toggle over to the FundDriver application, and when you're logged into FundDriver, this is what, you know, the landing page looks like. I wanted to show you some of the more high-level type functionality, and one of those is we have a utility built into the product for administering spending rules. And I know a lot of institutions are using spreadsheets to track this type of information. So we have some standard rules built into the product already. One of those that I use in my demo is what we call a % average rule. And you set up the parameters for this down here at the bottom. So in this sample rule that I'm showing you, I'm applying a 5% distribution rate over a 12-quarter rolling market value average of the individual fund market values. There's also some additional functionality here. If you need to limit spending on underwater funds, you can do that. Essentially, when we have your spending rules set up, and let's say it's that time of year where you need to calculate spending for budgeting purposes, you can do that just by running a report. So if you go to the report tab in FundDriver here, there's a folder called spending. And there's a report here called estimated spending report. This report's going to apply those spending rule parameters that I have set for that spending rule. And it's going to calculate not only in total at the, you know, at the total level, but it's doing it at the individual named fund level. And there's a column on this report called estimated spending. And these were the individual amounts that were calculated for these individual named funds based on those spending rule parameters that I have set up. So if I go to the end of this report here, this would be like my total budget amount for the year. And then you can take this a step further and you can dig into the actual calculation at the individual named fund levels. So if somebody's questioning the biology lecture distribution calculation that's being driven by that spending rule, you can always select the amount that was calculated and it'll create a proofing report. So this is an actual report that I'm generating. Any report that you generate in FundDriver, you can export to PDF, Excel, and Word formats. But I applied a 5% distribution rate on this biology lecture's 12 quarters of market value. So the system does that calculation. It does the average of the 12 quarters times the 5% distribution rate to give me that annual amount that was calculated. And then this is a unit-based system behind the scenes, so it distills that out to a dollar amount per unit calculation, which still gives you the same amount. So this is something that you could export and send to someone just to proof a calculation out. Again, a lot of places use spreadsheets to kind of track all this stuff. You can do all that, in FundDriver. We also have the ability to generate like your endowment footnote. So if you're paying somebody to do this for you already, this is something you can generate right out of FundDriver. So what we do is we work with our clients in setting up their different net asset classifications. And then, when the audit rolls around, you can just go to the report tab in this ASU folder. And there's a report here called Change in Endowment Net Assets. This is what I'm calling the footnote. And you would generate this report over your entire fiscal year, whatever that might be. And this will generate that footnote for you. So it makes that reporting a lot easier for you if this is something you're doing manually now. We are still tracking things the old way, what I call the old way, where you can track perm, temp, and unrestricted assets. So you can still generate reports that way as well. And then we also have what we call a donor report that you can generate out of FundDriver. There's a folder here called Stewardship. And we call it a donor report, even though it's generated by individual named fund. But this is a report, and I'll just create one really simple here real quick for you. This is a report that can have your logo at the top. It can have your footnotes at the bottom. And then you can generate financial information for any time period that you have history. Again, you can have a logo up here at the top, footnotes down here at the bottom. This fund purpose, we call it a purpose description. It's unique to this individual fund. So each individual named fund can have its own individual fund purpose. And then this is just the financial information for the time period that I generated the report. So if you wanted to send out a one-pager, you can generate that right out of FundDriver. And then for the folks that would actually be using FundDriver, you would typically be going through what we call a posting process. It basically, what that means is, you're accounting for any contributions that have come in for the period, or if you ran distributions, you're accounting for those, but then you're also accounting for the investment activity for that investment pool. So, like every month, if you were doing this, you would go in here and select your investment pool, and you would be inputting this investment pool information. So this would be the total market value of this investment pool, as well as the rest of this investment activity here. And FundDriver will take that activity and it'll allocate it down to the participant level. So before you can close a period, you have to reconcile things from a net cash flow standpoint. And this is my reconciliation for this investment pool. I ran a distribution, I had some gifts that I brought in, and then my investment activity flows in down here. Once you're reconciled to zero, you can close this period. And when you close the period, FundDriver, that's when it does all its processing. It allocates all that activity down to the participant level, which it'll do right now. And you see it says 7/31 posted successfully, then rolled me into August. And from this point on, I mean, you can generate as many reports for that period as you need to. It always defaults to this summary folder. If I wanted to see like a roll forward to see what just happened there in that month of July that I was working in, I could run this endowment transaction roll forward report. You could also run this over your entire fiscal year for the audit as well. And then if you're grouping funds a certain way, you can do a group by here and get subtotals by that grouping. And this is what that report looks like. It's got the beginning value of the named funds. It shows all the investment activity that's allocated, any transaction activity like gifts, distribution. So if you add the columns across, you end up with your any market value here. And then I did a group by department, so I've got subtotals by department. And then at the end of this report, we've got grand totals at the bottom. If I know I'm about timed out here, but if you were to go to the FundDriver website, just www.funddriver.com, under the resources section here, we've got some videos. I've got a full-length FundDriver demo video, as well as a short, like 15-minute demo. And then we also have some demos of some of the add-on functionality that we offer as well. Michelle, with that, I'm going to go ahead and cut myself off at time here.
Thank you so much, Aaron. I hope you all, we tried to highlight a couple products that we all use. One of them, Blackbaud Financial Edge, which many schools use. So you all might be aware of that. We tried to highlight a tool that maybe those Financial Edge NXT users aren't using. Fax management, student billing, which is another tool that many schools use, kind of highlighting some of the ways you can audit your use of fax and make sure that you're using everything in the most efficient way possible. And then FundDriver, a tool that maybe a lot of you aren't using, that you haven't heard about, that I really feel like if you're a school with an endowment, I found it to be an invaluable tool. So with that, I would like to have everybody submit some questions into the Q&A. I know we've had a bunch of questions going on in the chat with regards to expense management, but if you all want to like maybe start submitting some new questions that we can have our presenters all answer live here, that would be great. So Aaron, there's a question, does FundDriver download from the investment institution? Also directly for realized and unrealized gains and losses? So Aaron, I'll let you answer that one.
Sure. And are you able to hear me?
Yes.
We currently only have one integration with a custody system, and it's actually Northern Trust. We have built imports for investment activity. So if the information can be presented in a way that we can build an import for it directly from the investment companies, we can do that. We also offer a standard import that we already have built into the product. Basically what that does is we provide you with a file, and that investment activity gets populated in the file, and we have an import built for it. It'll map it all in that way. FundDriver will not, it's not a cost accounting system for purposes of like tracking gains and losses from the sale of like the underlying assets. You're essentially putting in the investment activity in total. So, you know, you would need to, your custodian, you would need to get like realized gains off of a custody statement or somewhere in order to input those into FundDriver. It wouldn't calculate those for you. In the reconciliation process that you would be doing, if you input everything into the reconciliation except your unrealized gains and losses, assuming that you've got everything correct, I mean, your difference in the reconciliation would typically be your unrealized gain and loss.
Okay, great. And then I don't know, Aaron, if you see the question, somebody was asking, can your solution be used as for an employee benefit plan? Do you see that question?
I'm assuming that would be for the purposes of doing sub-accounting on a pool. If that's the case, then you could use FundDriver for that. I mean, we have clients that use FundDriver for a lot of different things. You know, we have clients that set up investment pools for tracking like the gift annuity contracts that, you know, they might have separately invested. So it doesn't necessarily have to be used for tracking endowment funds. I mean, you can really track any type of pooled funds, regardless of what type they are.
Right. And many of you, if you saw Chad Christoph's presentation about reserves and the different buckets of reserves, here's a great product that can help you if you have your reserves invested with your other funds or pools of endowment funds, or board restricted endowment. Another great way to track those pools of money. We have another question for Heather. We have a user who says she used PGE and Blackbaud, but doesn't have it with her current school. Does Blackbaud still have that module? Heather, I'm not sure.
Yes, so that's project grants and endowments. We absolutely still have that. So yes, that can be
Okay,
added.
great. And then we have Stephanie, who says they use and love expense management. It just looks like she's just an end user of expense management, and really loves the product. Their school is able to use it in their expense reimbursement or expense management workflow. So that's great. We have a thumbs up from a user, which is great.
Thanks, Stephanie.
So does anybody else have any questions for any of our great presenters from any of these vendors? Or a question for myself about looking at your tools? Looks like we have a quiet group today. I know a lot of questions got answered by Heather earlier in the chat. Well, thank you so much, everybody. It looks like we don't have any more questions. I want to thank all of our presenters. Oh, here we have a question. Payment platforms. I assume, Lynn, that's for Heather.
Maybe Lynn could add a little bit to that. Are you thinking like payment processors as far as incoming?
Yeah, just so
distributions?
many payment platforms, like, it seems like every user in our school has something different. We've got the camps platform that uses Stripe, and we've got the development wants to use their iPad reader, and the bookstore takes something else. So we've got money coming in from at least 5 different platforms every month. That just really complicates the bank rec every month. You
Right.
know, so I don't know if anybody has if there's any tools out there that somehow can consolidate all of these different income streams.
Well, I can speak just kind of from the Blackbaud side of the house, especially as you think about like contributions. My area of expertise is development and finance. So with Razor's Edge and XT, we do have Blackbaud Merchant Services, and that's an integrated platform, which then Razor's Edge and Financial Edge are integrated. So that would account for the contribution activity, at least within those solutions.
Mm-hmm. But I hear you, Lynn. I think we all have that problem. And I think trying to consolidate, whether it be with Blackbaud Merchant Services or with another merchant, trying to consolidate your merchant platform into one sometimes can be really helpful. I know for the business office, because it can be really, I know I've worked with some business offices who really, it literally takes one person like a week to get all that information into their system, and it can really be time consuming. Let's see, Dan is asking, how can expense management be helpful to expense managers to follow their accounts for expense charges versus budget? Also, can you explain if there is a dashboard for senior management?
Yeah, so from truly from within expense management, as transactions are entered, if there is a conflict with a budget, the system will flag that. So you are made aware of that as the transaction is coming into the system. Beyond that, certainly, depending on what that expense manager has access to, you can give view-only access to both accounts and or projects. And so they're going to be able to see live data as far as revenue, expense, and balance information. And then even beyond that, we definitely have dashboards. You can do account or project dashboards so they can see real-time information. So however updated the system is what's going to populate dashboards, because they are dynamic data. So a couple different angles my mind goes to on that one.
Mm-hmm. Also, there's, I know some schools create reports that get auto-generated that go out to either, budget managers, not just with expense management, but with other products in Financial Edge in terms of, maybe reporting to board members or to your head of school that you can auto-generate that get emailed out at certain times, that can be helpful as well if you have users who don't want to hassle with logging into another product if they're not, computer savvy. Although that end of Blackbaud for kind of like these high level information only users is pretty simple.
Mm-hmm. You can schedule the dashboards as well, kind of
Right,
for the same thing.
right. So do we have any more questions out there? Okay, we'll wait one more minute, make sure we don't have any more questions. But feel free to reach out to maybe each of our presenters. Heather, if people want to get more information from Blackbaud, where should they turn to?
I did post a link as far as if the first place is if they're an existing Blackbaud customer is to reach out to their account executive and they can coordinate even a deeper dive demo of something like expense management. And if they're not a customer, I did post a link as far as how to get started and to get connected to the right resource.
Okay, great. And Roger from Fax, if you want to jump on here and give us the best place to reach out to Fax.
Yeah, if you're an existing, kind of what Heather says, if you're an existing customer, you can contact your account manager directly. And if not, I'll throw a quick web link on there for other people who aren't customers.
Great. And Aaron?
Yeah, I would just go to our website under the contact us section. My contact information's in there, my phone number, email address. We also have a contact us form as well.
Okay, great. And if anybody needs to get a hold of me, I can put my information in the chat as well. If you have any questions just about business office efficiencies, because I've been working on an interim basis with schools for the past year and have seen a lot of different systems and how different schools are using those systems. So feel free to reach out to me if anybody has any questions. But I'd like to thank all of our wonderful presenters, and I hope this has sparked your interest in kind of looking at the systems that you use in your school and making sure that your business office is using all the systems that they do have in the most efficient way possible, because we all are lucky in the independent school world. There really are some amazing tools to make our jobs a lot easier. So thank you all, and we will see you all at the next session. Thank you. Bye-bye.